So, looking through the draft, everything looks very normal. Uh, for the most part, up until the Staff of Domination,
Yep.
and then it it really starts throwing you for a loop here. And then also the Goblin Guide pick throws you off a little bit, and so I feel like this is what you start to see at the intersection of a VRD with a meta and a VRD where people have an idea of a combo that they want to do and they come in and just draft those cards. Ideally, you kind of want to strike a balance between those two, and it can be a total cluster cuss when you just get both of those groups together, because you never know what's going to happen, right? The players who are drafting their combo or drafting their archetype have a chance to completely throw you off your game if you're trying to draft a tight value list of just like, the most potent cards according to the meta.
Yeah.
Roddy, this is very interesting.
Reanimate's off the board, so we're not looking to use Reggie as that kind of value piece.
Yeah.
We still have Animate dead, Necromancy, etc. But I think people...
it might just be a I don't really care kind of a thing. Just like it's a 7/6 for 3 mana.
And there's the 7/2 Croc in Aether Drift that I think also...
Right. It's right in the same wheelhouse. I don't know if what we're going to see out of this is going to look like Fling or just like get in for damage and then pop those creatures back at their face.
Okay, yeah.
Or some kind of dredge adjacent list, but I don't know. The signs from the Monastery Swiftspear and Goblin Guide tell me that it's just a red-black go fast.
Yeah, my creatures enter in the same at the same angle my lands do, which is tapped.
Yeah. I think we might see a Croxa fairly soon out of this list.
Yeah.
My guess is that they'll forget to get Kolaghan's Command until a little bit later in the draft. Maybe somebody will remind them.
Yeah.
But
Goblin Guide and Monastery Swiftspear don't fit the bill of trying to play like a scam strategy, where you take the Register, you take Grief, Fury, Crooks, and then you take like, what is it? Not Dead Yet and all that other hoopla. And you kind of put together that list. Cassidy looks like they're going elf combo. Or
correct.
It could just be standard elf combo where you're going to play out 1 million green cards underneath the Kamigawa spell that I can't remember right now.
Glimpse of Nature.
Glimpse of Nature, yeah. You can go that way. You could Crater Hoof with Natural Order. Or you could Staff of Domination to make infinite mana and then just fireball somebody out if you wanted to.
Right.
I wonder if they'll pivot into blue and take Penmanzor as a backup Staff of Domination, but we'll see that later, I guess. And then we have maybe a couple artifact decks shaping up, or an artifact deck and a colorless deck, and I'm curious to see which direction both Josh and Hobbs go.
Okay, so we have... Wait, is Time Vault not off the board?
No, I don't believe so.
Oh my goodness. I think they forgot about it.
Oh, no, it is. Hobbs has it. 1, 2, 3 in the 5th round.
Okay, sorry, yeah, there it is. I'm very used to seeing it either in the 1st or 2nd round, so seeing it in the 5th is new.
Yeah. Do you know? Has anybody tried the mirror combo with Time Vault yet?
Lich's Mirror?
Yeah.
They've used
not Lich's Mirror. The one from Amonkhet that copies.
I don't believe so.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't recall. All right, we see Teferi finally coming off the board. This is... It's not the most powerful planeswalker, but it does a very important thing in VRD, which is turn your opponents off during your turn, so you can do the thing you're trying to do uninterrupted.
Yep.
It's a very nice thing. It has card draw built in. It has soft removal built in. It's just nice. It also lets you play balance at instant speed, which I love doing personally.
Yeah, and I think Mark is basically iterating on the deck he played in the Friends and Family VRD.
Yes.
It looks like he started the exact same way both times, but now he has this plan in front of him in seat 1.
Let's see here. That's actually the deck that I had, I think. Yeah, Karn, Urza's Saga, Black Lotus, Demonic Tutor. I think Hagen had Teferi, but yeah, that's it's very similar to the list I ran for our last in-person draft.
Yeah.
Grief now coming off the board for Hagen.
Hagen? Oh, okay.
I think this may be Hagen's time to shine. This is, although he did one thing that I hate to see, because I love Mana Crypt.
Okay.
I think it's very easily in the conversation for #1 overall pick. I still give it to Black Lotus, but besides the point, he has now drafted all cards that, with the exception of Grief, that are either 1 mana or are not assisted by adding 2 colorless. And sometimes you just find yourself in that position. So what we're going to look for from Steven is to pick up cards that are, 1 colored pip and 2 generic. That's how you really accelerate out of it. And that's why it's such a favorite in a Boros initiative list, because all it requires is that you have a 3-drop, a land that's on color, which is very easy to do.
Yep.
And your crypt. And so turn 1, without any real stretch of the imagination, you have White Plume Adventurer. You have Lelia. You have any number of other spells like that require an answer from your opponent, or the game is over in the next 3 turns.
I wonder. There's the Black Reanimation spell that starts the initiative.
So I know that there are 2 4-drop creatures in Black that start the initiative. I'm not familiar with the other one.
I don't know the name of it. I'm just trying to find it. It's not quite a Vintage Cube staple, so not a lot of people actually know it. And of course, it's from a Commander set, so not even.
Is this? Do we know if this is Kyle Rick? Yes, this is Kyle Rick.
From the Catacombs. Let's see if anybody's drafted this. Once.
Okay.
So, From the Catacombs costs 3 double black. Put target creature card from graveyard onto the battlefield under your control with a corpse counter on it. You take the initiative. If that creature would leave the battlefield, exile it instead of putting it anywhere else, so it's effectively a fate counter. And then it has Escape, 3 double black, exile 5 other cards from your graveyard. So there is the opportunity for Hagen to actually make use of the Crypt with the double colorless pips, like you mentioned, in going a bit bigger with some of the spells people might not actually recognize. But there's the Frog, which I thought he might pick up and kind of iterate on again the last deck that he played at Friends and Family.
Psychic Frog is, I think in my estimation, the best multicolored card, or best multicolored creature in the VRD format. It is so obnoxiously powerful. Like, just if it were like a vanilla card.
Yep.
It's a faster, better, more evasive Psychotog from 20 plus years ago. 25 years ago, and with all of the other text on it, it's just so nasty. With cards like Grief, with cards like Reanimate.
Yep.
It's so good.
Not to mention that it pitches to 4 different forces.
It's good. It's a really nutty card.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Reanimating it, not bad either. Cloning it, also pretty decent. It is just a ridiculous card overall. And I don't know how many of our players pay attention to Eternal constructed formats, but Psychic Frog and the card Stock Up are becoming pretty close companions.
Yeah. So let me ask you this question: do you think that Stock Up is a good card for VRD, or what are its use cases in VRD?
So I think Stock Up is a good card, but like other people have been talking about for constructed formats, this requires a deck that can produce the double colorless pip quickly and reliably, and then it becomes a better dig through time. But you have to slant your deck into Stock Up. You can't just take Stock Up. You have to be prepared to cast it quickly and reliably. And that's kind of where I am. I think Hagen has the opportunity to do so with the Monocrypt, and I think Hobbs has the ability to do so with their first 3 picks. I don't think anybody else really has the opportunity to cast Stock Up quickly right now or reliably, but we don't know where the Soul Lands are going yet, so there is opportunity for Josh, if Josh wanted to stay blue, to take Stock Up. And then I think that has, for these decks that I've mentioned, the non-combo decks, it gives them an avenue to fight back against combo by looking at so many cards to try and find those particular pieces to get out of lock or get out of a combo board state.
Yeah. So we have Josh here with the Ancient Tomb. The Soul Ring is with Cassidy, and we still have. I mean, we do have Eye of Ugin here. Technically, that's one of those lands, but several of those obviously still available for the board to take.
Yeah.
Last couple of picks, we have Kyle going back to back with Mystic Sanctuary and Otawara, making sure that he's getting those utility lands. I assume that at some point we'll have a Cryptic Command coming from him. Not a stretch at all, because it looks as though the other blue decks are either in artifacts, blue colorless, or are splashing into other colors, and Cryptic Command is not a card that you're going to run if you're also running, let's say, a Mithra's Workshop. So that's an easy, safe pick to get later.
So
then go ahead.
So talking about Kyle, looking at their deck and Luke's deck, do you think they're kind of stepping on each other's toes a bit? So we have from Kyle a traditional, I would say, Azorius reactive control deck. Yes.
So I think that, this is the kind of deck that will absolutely take Celestial Colonnade and win, I would say, probably like 30% of their games from just flying Vigilance beats off of that particular land. Luke, we've got Wheels, we've got
we have Narset and we have Scepter.
We have card draw manipulation, whereas Kyle's kind of in card denial control. There's obviously pieces that are going to be available to both players that they're going to want and going to fight over. Obviously the cantrips and stuff like that, but certain value creatures, I would imagine that just for example, like to fill out your creature list, Chromhost Seed Shark seems to be a card that both of these players would want. Yeah. So, Chromhost Seed Shark is a card that you get a lot of value from doing recursive wheels and stuff, and also like Force of Will and Gush. Those are get some 5/5s from free spells. It's really powerful.
Where I think they might have been stepping on each other's toes, is going to be in the card selection department, because we have an Isochron Scepter on Luke's side. So Luke is going to be looking for something very specific, and Mark has both Vampiric and Demonic, which leaves Mystical and Personal Tutors open for Luke to find whatever.
Yeah, Grim Monolith was already picked in round 4 by Josh.
So we have Assault.
There we go.
Yeah. So if you're going to be digging for something to put on the Scepter, you don't have a lot available to you outside, like I said, of Mystical, Personal. So Luke takes Ponder, that denies Kyle that avenue, and then we have still Brainstorm, Preordain, Consider, etc., etc. And so that's kind of where I was thinking they might actually start to kind of eat each other's lunch, so to speak.
Yeah, not to be, too critical, I guess, of Luke, but I think at this point it's more that he's stepping on his own toes.
Got it.
Drafting Isochron Scepter in the 5th round, and then and we are now in the 12th round, and him having not drafted a single instant. I hopefully he's aware that it's instant and not instant and or sorcery.
Yep.
Because he cannot put a Time Walk on that Isochron Scepter. I think we've all found that out at some point over the last 22 years. But
yeah, or with Born Upon a Wind and Valley Floodcaller that allow you to cast spells as though they had flash that doesn't interact positively with Isochron Scepter.
Correct. It does not change the type to instant.
No.
So with Kyle grabbing Mana Leak and Counterspell, just thinking to himself, "Hey, these are 2 mana instants." It's proactive drafting against Luke, and it's much harder for Luke to fight back because he has the deck restrictions.
Yes.
That limit his choices.
Yep. And from Hobbs, we saw Basalt Monolith into Power Artifact, which makes infinite colorless mana.
Yep. So this is the deck that I think the number 1 VRD card from the recent set, Aether Drift, belongs in.
Yep.
That is Unstoppable Plan. And this is an effect that previously at 4 mana only applied to lands, like Wilderness Reclamation or whatever it is. Untapping all of your non-land stuff at the end of turn obviously is perfect for Time Vault. What is there to say other than it gives you infinite turns without having to activate a key, or it takes out some of those steps where they can blow up the combo in between, or eliminate the mana requirement.
Yep.
So Hobbs is a perfect deck for it, and so I think I would love to see that Unstoppable Plan come out at some point. Oh, finally, Mark's just like, you know what? It's here. I'm going for it.
Yep. That was mentioned in chat. KM Brightbill called that out, that the white initiative creatures were still floating, so somebody basically gets them for free.
Yeah, I would say that at this point, Mark is currently my favorite. All of the cards so far that he's taken are either very impactful or generate a lot of tempo. And getting White Plume and Season Engineered this late is it's a blessing.
Yes.
There's no curse with that. You're just it's very difficult typically to get Vampiric Tutor, Demonic Tutor to Fairy, get Probe, and White Plume, Karn, Mox Diamond, Tinker. These are all cards that go in the first 3 or 4 rounds.
Yep.
And he has them all in the same deck. And that level of power is going to be really hard to overcome. Now, Steven is another very practiced, seasoned drafteer That's a terrible way to go off of Seasoned Dungeoneer. Sorry. But I've already seen a couple of mistakes, I think, from Steve's list. The first being, Mana Crypt not being pivoted into the appropriate, costing of spells.
Yep.
But then I also just love this Delighted Halfling here. I think that a lot of the time, looking at the spells that he has on board so far, you just want Birds of Paradise. I think that Delighted Halfling, especially with Birds of Paradise still available, it's just kind of and there goes the Minskamboo. He's like, all right, we're going into red, at least for a tiny splash.
Yep.
So that does make the Delighted Halfling pick a little bit better. But at the same time, I would still have loved to have seen a Birds of Paradise there, so that you don't have to retroactively pivot, so that you're not putting the pressure on yourself to have to, that you're not forcing yourself to branch out.
Yeah, I would expect him to take Ignoble as well, because it makes black, it makes it easier for him, and it helps splash Minskamboo.
Yeah.
Right.
I really want the next pick from him to be Birds of Paradise, because at 4 mana in a field that is leaving the traditional top 15 round meta picks on the board. So I think that into round 30, we're still going to be seeing cards that just are normally gone well before that.
Yep.
Coming off the board for drafters like Mark and Steven. You just want to keep your mana as flexible as you can while still having the opportunity to pick up those impact cards.
Yeah.
What's kind of impressing you from this draft so far?
It was Josh for a little bit, because I thought we were just gonna kind of sneak into the colorless creature deck. We would sneak into Eldrazi or something like that. But the Flusterstorm into City of Brass pick kind of threw me off of that. And now I'm looking at Hobbs' list as one that might have the ability to just sneak under the radar and finish out really big. I'm not quite sure how Metalworker is going to round out, but we have the opportunity to take a lot of stacks pieces, and so we can play a slow game. We have a way to pivot into infinite mana in a number of ways, and we can start to take advantage of some of the more traditional like mud finishers, where we can pick up Walking Ballista is already off the board, but Hangerback Walker, Arcbound Ravager are still there. The new Walker from Aether Revolt is still in play. The double X, when it leaves the battlefield, draw cards equal to its power.
The Merfolk. Or, sorry, which card is this?
It's from Aether Revolt.
And it's a Planeswalker?
Nope, not the Aether Spark. It's just an artifact. It was the
okay.
Promo. Yeah. I can't remember the name of it.
Hangerback something.
Marketback Walker.
Marketback Walker. Okay.
That's the name of it.
When you said Walker, I was thinking Planeswalker. So sorry, that's where the confusion was coming from. But yes.
No problem. So I think. Not Aether. Yeah, Aether Drift. I'm sorry, not Aether Revolt. Derp. So.
They do have a Misty Rainforest, which, at the very least is an indication that they could go into green.
Yeah.
And if you're making that much mana and you're actively in green, I like Goldvein Hydra. It's not as good as I thought when I originally read it with those treasures coming into play tapped, but still a mana sink that allows you to win the game on.
So I've had up for a while because of Hobbs' power artifact pick, Kinnan Bonder Prodigy, which is one of the best CEDH commanders out there. It allows you to go infinite with Basalt, Monolith, and a pair of socks. Like, you could just do whatever you need to make infinite mana. You can then go through your deck and win with Thoracle. So even if Hobbs wants to pick up Thoracle soon, they could also just let Mesmeric Orb float and take that. And so it's the opportunities in front of Hobbs that impresses me the most about that deck, not necessarily because they're disciplined picks, but because this deck can open up into a lot of different things.
The pure potential of it all.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we've got the Painter's Servant coming off the board for Josh, which, signals that Grindstone is coming at some point. Luke going into Windfall to continue with that Wheels theme with the Bowmasters, the Ley Line of the Void, the Narset. It's, pretty obvious what that deck wants to do. Mark that seems like an accident. Mark continuing the value train of picking round 4 and before tribal.
Yeah.
With every single pick, I think he has a card that has been drafted in the 4th round or earlier. That is pretty nutty. So from Luke, how do you want him to finish out this list?
You're asking a really good question, because this is actually something I wanted to talk about during the break. It's been mentioned in chat that Luke should snag Shieldred, and I agree with that. But because Luke has the opportunity to go infinite with Shieldred, Necropotence, and Ketramos from Aether Revolt.
Yep.
That is an infinite combo where, because you're gaining life off the Shieldred to draw cards from Necro, you're getting 1. You can just draw your entire deck, and then in cleanup, you discard your cards. Necro triggers, all your cards go to exile, and then Ketramos just domes your opponent for the fireball.
Yeah, and unless there's an effect preventing them from gaining life, or excuse me, unless they have something that gains them a bunch of life, they're done ski.
Yes,
that's pretty potent. I'm a little concerned about the speed of Luke's deck, although it is, I think, traditionally a little bit overrated, having all of the Moxen and the Soul Lands in decks like this.
Yep.
But it is slower. There's no mana acceleration other than a Chrome Mox, which is, much like Mox Diamond, except not quite as good, but still card disadvantage. Taking a spell out of your hand. In a list like this, it's wheeling, so it's exactly the deck that you want a Chrome Mox to be in. But that's the only piece of acceleration. So we can see a turn 1 Dothy Voidwalker. We can see a turn 1 Bowmasters getting held up. But more than likely, what we're going to see out of this is a turn 1 cantrip pass, and then just waiting to trap somebody with a Narset into a wheel or something like that.
And with Hagen has Thoughtseize and IOK, which makes it very, very difficult for Luke to play that kind of value game.
Yep.
Right. So it
is susceptible for sure.
Yeah.
So we haven't checked in with Pete in a while. Looking fairly soupy, but there's, you can't take away from the potential damage that a Rakdos style deck can do.
Yep.
So like if you get a good hand and start swinging early, like a Rotting Regisaur hits really hard. In no world is it a 7th round pick, but it still hits very, very hard. So taking a very surprising Beseiju in the 10th round, and then into some adventure cards. We've got a Braid and Krenko. It's interesting because it looks like at this point it's pivoting into a Goblin tribal deck, which makes, I guess, picks like Monastery Swiftspear and Ragavan a little bit more questionable.
Krenko Mob Boss is also really, really slow.
Yeah.
So go
ahead. Sorry.
It's difficult for me to see where this deck goes. going from Krenko a 4-drop into Coat of Arms 5-drop, even if you take Rabble Master, like new Rabble Master and old Rabble Master.
Right.
There is the Goblin spell from Onslaught, I believe, that gives you red pips for each goblin you control. And it just seems so slow.
Yeah, I mean, there's any number of goblin combos. I think, other than humans, goblins are probably, it's a top 5 tribal, whatever, kindred, whatever you want to call it. There's so many options throughout the history of Magic, so many directions where you could go with this. And it's unfortunate that you're not going to get the same bonuses from Ragavan and Monastery Swiftspear that you would be if you purely went in. So it seems like it's stepping into multiple worlds a little bit. I'm guessing that because they just finished round 15, that they're on a break right now.
Yep.
So yeah, it's a good time for us to kind of do a holistic review.
Absolutely. The big standout is actually something that you called out when we were prepping for this event, and the fetch lands.
Yep.
We don't have that standard kind of run on fetch lands that we've seen in the past.
Land run. So potent was the fetch land run once that when we designed our sheets, they would be highlighted once they were taken, so that players could easily identify how many of the 11 premier fetches were taken and which ones were still available, because it was the most relevant I guess visual reminder that we needed. And now, how many fetches are even off the board? We've got one.
Hagen took 3 in a row: Verdant Catacombs, Delta, and Prismatic Vista, which is the 11th one that you mentioned. We have Bloodstained Mire, Marsh Flats.
Yeah, it looks like 5 of them are off the board.
Misty. It's difficult to suss out because they're just not in a row anymore. They're just spread around through all these columns.
Yeah.
Like, it is surprising that Hagen was able to go back to back to back on 3 fetch lands and end up with effectively perfect mana coming out of this.
That's the benefit of it, is that for Steven, his mana is going to be good. It's going to allow him to play this Minsk and Boo without any hassle whatsoever.
Yep. And kind of coming along with that, I think Tundra might be the only dual land that's off the board right now.
It seems to be the case.
Yep.
And I think that this ties into the larger theme about mana and VRD, and it seems as though over the last, we'll call it year to year and a half, in the very recent era of VRD, the mana cycles that have been introduced, especially the rare slot, the Surveil lands, and then the Verge lands from Duskmourn, and then recently Ether Drift.
Yep.
They have gotten past that threshold so that you can reliably have your entire deck filled, if it is a 2-color deck, entirely with non-basics if you wanted to. I don't think it's an idea, but you can always fix to that point. Even if there's another drafter in those colors, if there's 2 Izzet drafters, there is such a surplus of lands that enter untapped under some conditions or whatever, that you guys could share those side by side.
Yeah.
And having a fetch in order to get a volcanic island or a shock or whatever it is, a triome, it's not as valuable as it once was, purely from a fixing perspective. There's no reason that you need a fetch in a 2-color deck if you're not, 1, abusing landfall triggers, 2, trying to manipulate your deck by shuffling it or something like that, or 3, playing more than 2 colors.
Yeah.
Like obviously there's Crucible of Worlds, Ramen Up Excavator style things where you're using those fetches to get everything out of your deck. But it's just not necessary. And so that's why we've seen, Mark, who is in 3 colors, has not touched a land for fixing. No, he's in 4 colors, excuse me. Has not.
Yep.
And he and I have had this conversation before too, where you'll figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
It's really just not a problem.
No.
So,
for reference, just to give people an idea, if you're Mark, you have the duels available to you, you have the shocks available to you, you have the triomes available to you, you have the surveil lands available to you, you have the cycling lands from BFZ available to you, and you have the tango lands from Shadows over Innistrad or somewhere around there available to you as well. Those are 6 different types of lands that you could go fetch if you would like to, or just play raw. That is an incredible amount of power for a deck like this.
This is why I think I'm not going out too far on a limb here by saying that Mark far and away has is in first place in this draft. Not only just because like the sheer power level of every card that he's drafted so far, but because based on how the board is, he is perfectly capable of still getting every piece of fixing that he needs to make a 4-color pile work.
Yep.
And Steven took those same picks, those same slots to take fixing that was very much going to be available to him later in the line. Like at a certain point, you don't need that many pieces. They become redundant. In Arid Mesa fetches for a taiga just as well as a Wooded Foothills does. And so you're losing equity when you're making picks like that earlier, like on redundant pieces that you don't need to be. And so, I don't know exactly what card I would say that he wanted to pick up as opposed to the things that he did pick. But I mean, there's plenty of stuff all over the board you can look to and be like, oh, that would definitely be a good addition to his deck. Yep. Orcish Bowmaster is 1 instead of a Verdant Catacombs.
That was that's taken off the board already.
So we'll see if that ends up hindering the decks. Like it doesn't hurt to have 4 fetches that get you everything you want on color constantly. It's just, a question of whether you gave up anything else that came off the board during that period of time.
Yep.
So they've started back up.
Yep.
Yeah.
So Kyle picked up Mental Misstep, which is one of the most powerful counter spells that's still left. Hobbs picked up Urza's Cave, which is an interesting card. Search your library for a land, put it to the battlefield, tapped. Yep. So multiple ways to get Academy at this point if we're looking for that. Yep. Cassidy with Glistener Elf, and we're not really seeing a way to kind of pump it up yet, but there's a long way to go.
I think that the card Cassidy most wants is probably Allosaurus Shepherd at this point. Well, I mean, there's loads of cards that Cassidy will take that aren't wanted by anybody else.
Yep.
There are, let's see, is this 3 or 4 players who are at least in green-ish or have demonstrated some kind of who have some kind of green spell or effect. So looks like 3 other players. Allosaurus Shepherd is, as a 1-drop, making your green spells uncounterable is an effect that other players want as as a protection mechanism.
Yep. Agreed.
And there we see Mark finally joining the fixing train and getting the Arid Mesa and Windswept Heath. And like we said, Windswept Heath, I think I probably still would have gone with Marsh Flats here. unless Mark is going to go 5-color soup and pick up Hex Drinker or something the next round.
I think flats might have been taken. Yes, Luke has marsh flats.
Oh, okay. So that's why.
Yeah.
But what he's saying is basically, okay, now I'm just going to center all of my lands, all of my fetchable lands around the white pip.
Yeah.
And so I'll get my plateau, I'll get my badlands, etc.
Okay.
Josh is in Eldrazi combo as we kind of assumed was coming.
Yeah. So Blade of the Bloodchief combos with common from Modern Horizons 3.
Yes, Basking Broodskill, I believe.
Let me see.
Broodskill something.
Yep. You are correct. Basking Broodskill. Colorless in a green. Devoid doesn't matter. 1 in a green, adapt 1. Whenever 1 or more +1/+1 counters are put on Basking Broodskill, you may create a 0/1 colorless Eldrazi spawn creature. And the rest of that card doesn't matter because Blade of the Bloodchief will put a counter on it whenever a creature goes to the graveyard. So you just sack the Scion for mana, Bloodchief puts a counter on it, and then you have an infinitely large Basking Broodskill and infinite colorless mana.
Yeah.
And then,
it is.
Okay.
It's a good way to turn it all off. Like that shuts down the game, and it is a very low cost to get all those pieces out.
And
so
that's where City of Brass starts to make a little bit of sense for me.
Yeah. I think. Let's see. So this player is in green and blue, but has. Yeah, I think I expect them to branch out into a third color at some point. Now, you and I have, on this Eldrazi combo list, you and I have had some just very subtle disagreements. So obviously it's not possible in this draft, given that in round 8, the Sensei's Divining Top went to Kyle.
Yes.
And a very reasonable pick from Kyle in this counterspell style control deck. Also, Kyle now taking Brazen Borrower, which is off the board. In my estimation, easily a top 5 blue creature. Just does a lot. But back to Josh, the preferred combo that I like with Glaring Fleshraker is Glaring Fleshraker, Sensei's Divining Top, and Mystic Forge.
Yes.
And it basically just allows you to draw your entire deck and ping them. Ping your opponent. You don't even get to the bottom of your deck by the time your opponent's dead. So I guess you can't draw your entire deck. But I think your approach to it, the Glaring Fleshraker, was a little bit different.
Yeah. I wanted to faces the place with combat and then just try and Glaring Fleshraker was more of a helping hand than it was a combo piece for me. Yep. So I wanted to basically play Eldrazi aggro, and it for sure worked, but this is not the play. Josh's deck is the deck I would absolutely play Mystic Forge in.
Right.
We need that extra card off the top. We have Manifold Key already to untap it. We have several combos we are going to try and utilize, and even though we can't go infinite because SDT is gone, we definitely do still need a way to find our combo pieces. So I would absolutely flex into Mystic Forge in the main.
Yeah. In a combo list like this, having those redundant pieces where you can, kind of mix and match with any 3-card set, those are really scary to play against. We've got Mark taking Balance and Luris. I mean, Luris, you're running Black Lotus. There's no reason to not play Luris. I think so many games are won in VRD, like a very non-trivial percentage, 10 to 15 are just won when you go turn 1, land, Lotus, Luris, recast the Lotus, play a 4-drop, deal with it.
Absolutely.
so nasty. It's so potent, and Mark has the ability in this deck to go into a fourth ear Lingus. Luris fourth ear Lingus on turn 1 or 4 damage, and you have the Monarch, it's going to be really hard to come back from games like that, especially now that he has a card like Balance, which is one of few ways that you're getting yourself out of that.
Yep. Mark now has 2 ways to create 2 completely different extra game pieces in the initiative and the monarchy, and that can be a lot for people to try and climb out from. Like those, even one of those could be entirely overwhelming. So the opportunity to get to fourth ear Lingus this early, like you're saying, is fantastic. And similarly with the initiative creatures.
What we really want to see from Mark for the rest of this draft, because he's kind of on cruise control. We want to see him with a max speed card. We want to see him getting tempted by the ring.
Okay.
We want
Sauron's Ransom, right? That's the weird factor fiction.
Yeah. There's that one. He could be. Oh, I'm gonna guess Mark's next pick right now.
Okay.
I'm gonna say it's gonna be Caracas. That's my hypothesis. But
okay.
Besides the point, we've got that Birds of Paradise finally coming off the board from Luke, following up the Ashiok Dream Render pick. I think Ashiok Dream Render is a tremendous value planeswalker. It is a very non-traditional win con.
Just a slow mill.
It's in the fact that it's a slow mill, but the fact that those cards, those 4 cards off the top of the deck are exiled is extremely relevant. And exiling 4 cards at once is that is a substantial number of cards to be exiling.
Okay.
Especially if your opponent is manipulating their deck in any way.
So while we're looking at Luke's list, Josh has Pain or Grindstone, but Helm of Awakening is still available for Luke. And Luke has 2 of the necessary 3 combo pieces in black, because the other one, is it Planar Chaos?
That sounds right. Though it's 1 drop from Tempest or something.
I can think of the art. I think that's the name. So we have the opportunity for Luke to take one of the many 2-card Monties, so to speak.
Right. Dothy Voidwalker absolutely is just a card you want to run in a black deck anyways. Leyline of the Void is a card that is probably going to get sideboarded out a lot of the time if you're running it main board. But you're not going to be running that main board unless you are. Sorry, my girlfriend just walked in. As you guys may know, today is it's Mardi Gras in St. Louis, and we have foregone that to be with you here today. And so I got my coffee hurricane just delivered to me.
That thing looks amazing.
Oh, ooh, that's nice. So, back to the action. I think that Helm of Awakening is absolutely a card you want. It's a great sideboard plan, especially if your opponent's deck is doing a lot of work to shut you down on other lanes. So we should absolutely see it, and whether or not that goes main board or sideboard, it's completely up to Luke. And I think, as we have all found out at some point or another by playing VRDs, you just happen to overdraft your main board sometimes. And by sometimes, I mean 98% of the time. And so you have to make like that. But it's a good problem to have, especially when it is infinite combos with redundancy pieces in your deck. And
then looking right in the middle of the draft, we have Hagen and Pete that actually look to be fighting on the Reanimator axes right now.
Yeah. So now Show and Tell is a perfect card for Hagen. This is a card that I don't know if we wanted him to take off the board earlier or not, but he's finally getting surplus value out of the mana crypt that he got first overall pick.
I think we are going to see Atraxa and Archon of Cruelty out of Hagen. I don't think Gristlebrand was ever on the board for him, especially with Bowmasters still floating, or not floating around, but under Luke's control.
Right.
If you had Bowmasters, you could safely take Gristlebrand, but not here.
Correct. And I mean, Gristlebrand has just been outclassed a little bit, especially in soupy type decks, because you know Hagen can cast it if he really needs to.
Yes.
But you know, Gristlebrand makes a lot more sense in Pete's deck. Yes, he is the one who picked up Animate Dead in the 16th round. So Pete's deck coming together a lot nicer than the initial pick order, I will say.
Yep.
You know, kind of stumbling with some dirtily cards in the beginning. But what we've got out of Luke right now is my least favorite combo, whatever you want to call it, in VRD. And I think that that's true for a lot of people in a lot of different formats.
Where this combo is legal, yeah.
Yeah, Thassa's Oracle it's Thassa's Oracle. It is a combo piece that is very difficult to interact with outside of counter spells on the Thassa's Oracle itself, or you know, there's very niche ways to interact with it. But it hits, and like bounce spells don't work. You know, if you counter the demonic consultation, then I don't know, they still have a 1/3 on board, I guess, but you know, their library is in exile. They're not getting punished. And doing all of this at a cost of 3 total mana, it's very annoying to play against. So I think that Luke kind of automatically just shot up in the power rankings. This Wheels the Oracle list that he's got going on is it's just gonna pull wins. Like the opponent's gonna have like win on board, and he just untaps and takes it instead.
Yep.
So going over to Hobbs, we've got Simulacrum Synthesizer.
Yep.
And this is another extremely potent value card in this blue-black artifact list. I don't think we have not seen LED come off the board, correct?
That is correct.
So I think, given that Hobbs is the player with the Hull Breacher, I think what I would probably suggest or like to see out of this list is LED and Echo of Eons. I think that he needs a reliable way to refill his hand. And like getting Hull Breacher out, like, you know, flashing it in and at end of turn, and then just cracking the LED for Echo of Eons, it can lead your opponent into some lines where they just can't recover from that.
Yep. Simulacrum Synthesizer was a card that led me to question whether or not we would see Repurposing Bay in this draft, which is basically just Birthing Pod for artifacts. And the opportunity for that, I guess, now is a little bit higher with what we're seeing from Hobbs with Simulacrum Kappa Cannoneer is on board. We see Metamorph that could come in copying something large. Loadsome Golem, Worm Coil Engine. There's the opportunity for Coveted Jewel as well.
Okay, so I'm just now looking at Repurposing Bay, and it's one of those cards I saw during spoilers, and then I've played a decent amount of Ether Draft, Sealed, and Draft, and I have not seen that card once since then. after firing about 10 to 15 of those events. So that has completely gone out of my mind. But yes, that is it's an excellent card with cards like Kappa Cannoneer in Hobbs's deck. I think it is absolutely a great shell for it.
Yeah.
I still want to see the Unstoppable Plan. So now we've got 2 cards coming out of Ether Drift that are looking good for Hobbs to potentially pick up. We got Dragon. Go ahead.
So I don't know if we'll see repurposing Bay because you got to be able to untap it. It's harder to work with than Kiki combo or Burning Pod combo, but there is opportunity for it. And yeah, Jiraga Tree Speaker from Cassidy, like you mentioned, just allows you to start making a ton of mana early. Goblin Rabblemaster from Pete kind of leans back into the Goblins theme. So yeehaw on that. Josh taking Ulamog for what looks like it'll be infinite mana, like an outlet there.
What's the infinite mana with Ulamog?
So as an outlet for the infinite mana, like if for whatever reason he can't kill with the Blade of the Blood Chief Basking Broodscale, like you have something to do with all your mana now. You can just cast Ulamog the Infinite Gyre.
And so what is the value in going with Ulamog as opposed to Emrakul in this situation?
I don't know why you would take Ulamog this early over Emrakul or this particular Ulamog. He already has Ulamog the Defiler in the list, which seems good enough.
Maybe Ulamog Tribal is just the vibe.
Maybe. But yeah, taking both Emrakuls I think would be better than taking that Ulamog.
Yeah, he does have Eye of Ugin, and 9 mana is still eminently more castable without going infinite, as opposed to 13 for Aeon's Torn Emrakul. Delighted Halfling, Steven, you already took it. You love that card. You love that card a little bit too much, bud.
He was trying to take Ignoble Hierarch, and it was there, and it was fine, and then he changed to Delighted Halfling. I don't know why. There we go.
Yeah.
Mark taking Caves of Chaos Adventure and City of Traders, and actually looking to maybe abandon Tinker and Endor Saga?
You won't abandon Saga because it still gets you Lotus Black
and
Lotus.
Petal and Diamond.
Yeah. Yeah. And like look at the glut of picks that Mark has been making, right? He was almost, as soon as we came back from break, was almost forced to start picking up some fixing just so it was no longer a true concern. But he's not had a single break from taking incredibly potent, like, game-ending threats.
Yeah.
And so I don't think that we've seen the end of the I don't want to say the value or whatever, but like we haven't seen the end of him trying to get that synergy from Urza's Saga, that it doesn't just make it a Black Lotus fetching engine. I think that he is also very capable of getting LED. He can still go Breach, Brain Freeze, making this just a much more potent version of the deck that I drafted in Saint Lotus 15.
Yeah. I think Mark and Kyle are both in the same spot where they really need realistically maybe 5 to 6 more main deck cards, and then that's it. The deck is done. They can take lands and sideboard cards from there as they feel like the core of their deck feels like it's there.
Right. So we had Josh do Painter Servant Grindstone. This, I think, is the time in the draft before it gets back to Kyle specifically, where Josh wants to take Hydroblast, Blue Elemental Blast.
Okay. Those
we've seen Mark poke into red. Hagen is poked into red. Pete is very firmly in red. So mainboarding both of those cards is a viable choice. But what Painter, kind of the surplus value you get out of running the Painter Servant Grindstone combo is that you can just run Painter Servant, even if your Grindstone gets exiled or whatever. you get the surplus value of it being able to turn everything red, and so you can just counter every spell that your opponent plays.
Yep.
So from Pete here, we've got Goblin Rabblemaster, which is very happy to see him pick that up. That is a card that rounds out all of the axes of his deck very nicely. Eidolon of the Great Revel, it can be a devastating lock in the right circumstances. And Torbrand, harder to cast for sure.
It's 3 red hits on that bet.
Very, yeah. It's 1 red. Yep. And hard to cast, but a very devastating effect. Now that's exactly why. See, Mark was able to pick up Lightning Bolt in round 20, and talking about the Goblin Guide and Rotting Regisaur picks that Pete made early, those would have been so nice to have Lightning instead of that, especially, if Torbrand is coming there. All right, now we see the Volcanic Island and Lutri. I was very off base with my Caracas pick, but, if these are the cards that you're taking in place of it, you're not sad to miss out on that. No. And it might just be the case with Mark running, at minimum right now 4 colors. Just that Caracas only adds white.
Yep.
He might be making that consideration. Like, if I'm going to spend a pick taking a non-basic land, it is going to add 2 colors.
For sure.
So we've got some Ponza action from Luke here. Interesting. Utopia Sprawl is fine. It adds different colors. I'm not sure how much value we're getting out of a Wild Growth.
Yeah,
the deck that Luke is drafting looks extremely different in the first half of picks, in the first 13 picks, as opposed to the most recent 13 picks.
There's some cards I could see Luke taking, but I would have taken the Triome instead of Wild Growth because I already have Arbor Elf, and then Utopia Sprawl fits on that. And I don't think Hagen has that Triome yet, so that means you can pull it out from underneath him, and you can play your deck. And then with the wheels that you have and the graveyard shenanigans, you're in Sultai, you can take Leovold.
Okay, yeah. That Leovold is absolutely a card that Luke wants in this list. Adds some protection. It's on color. It enhances the wheels to a very high degree.
Is Twister gone?
Yes, Time Twister is gone.
Got it. Oh, Luke has Twister. Okay. And
I believe the wheels, the impactful wheels that are still on the board are available to be picked are Echo of Eons and Time Spiral.
Yep. And if you consider Sail into the West one, that's still there.
That's true. I very often forget about Sail into the West, but it, once again, in Luke's genre for sure, in that Sultai wheels control.
Yeah. Hagen picked up the Shieldred, which is something that we talked about. Luke could have taken earlier. It's just a nice value piece for Hagen. Pete with Blood Moon and only Moxen right now seems fine. You're in solidly Rakdos. You can just play Mountains and Swamps.
Yeah, Pete's deck is it is certainly capable of getting wins. I think my concern would just be that it's gonna do its thing much slower than a lot of the other decks here. An aggro deck that goes slower is not really something that you wanna hear. And like cards like Pack Rat are exceptional and can be backbreaking. But that with Liliana the Veil, everything like that, you're getting into an area where the value that you're getting out of those interactions is one that is keeping you at perpetual lack of diversity of options. You draw your card, you discard it with Pack Rat, you make a token, you have Liliana the Veil make both players discard cards, and
That's it.
yeah, that you don't have any other choices to make.
Correct.
You don't have any counterplay.
Yep.
So, okay, a lot of picks coming off in very rapid succession, but Cassidy with Archdruid's Charm, and I believe the first non-elf creature.
Siege Behemoth,
yeah.
but yeah.
Okay, yes, but with Ramanop Excavator, Pete picking up Fury, which is a card that traditionally we see come off a lot earlier, but is perfect in this wheelhouse, in this suite of effects. That's a good card for Pete to pick up. Steven getting Veil of Summer, good counterplay, especially against this very soupy draft.
Yep.
That's happening, and there we see the Helm of Obedience come off for Luke.
Mark took Fable, which is surprising. When we were looking at Caves of Chaos Adventure, that was something that I thought Mark might take, but I thought that would put him too far into red.
Yeah, it looks at this point he has committed to it.
Yeah.
He now has 5, I believe. He's got Fourth Ear Lingus, Lightning Bolt, Caves of Chaos. I guess you can count Lutri, and then Fable of the Mirror Breaker. So he's firmly in red with 20-ish% of his picks in that oeuvre. Josh taking 2 soul lands back to back.
You can float those later. Nobody's gonna snipe them from you.
No, I don't think so. I'm not sure exactly if it's a raceway or whatever it is, but there is a max speed soul land. But
oh yeah, a Temple of the False God, basically.
Something like that, but it requires you to get max speed, so you play that land first, whatever, and then you have to essentially wait until turn 3 at the earliest to get the value from that. So I would not be surprised if we don't see it. If we do see it, I mean, it's just it's nice if it comes online, because otherwise it's just tapping for colorless.
Yeah. The only max speed card I thought we would see would be, I think it's like Howlback Stomper, the new Rabble Master. I guess people don't realize it. I'm pretty sure it starts your engines. Double checking. Draconautics Engineer is something I thought we might see. Where are we? Howl Squad Heavy. Yep. I'm sorry about that. It definitely does start your engines.
So yeah, we've got other goblins you control have A's. I mean, this is a card that Pete could take right now in this slot, and we would be soothsayers, visionaries for predicting it. I don't know that. Just judging off of a lot of the picks that Pete's made, I don't think his style is in keeping up with the most recent standard sets necessarily. So I would not be surprised if we don't see that, but it would work certainly very well for this list.
Yeah.
We see Mark with Solitude here, and I think this is one of those cards where all of his white cards are so impactful that I think it's going to be hard for him to get the kind of value out of Solitude that he wants. It's incredibly hard to not mainboard this card and to just say I don't know if exiling another card in hand is worth it for what for this effect that is going to go to the graveyard. But because Solitude doesn't really help against Luke going with the Thoracle combo.
Nope.
It does help with Painter's Servant. It does help with, I guess, at least getting Dothy Voidwalker off the board for a Helm of Obedience style. But
I want a hard pivot real quick because this requires it. Pete took the card Fork.
Does he have any spell to fork?
Murderous Rider on the back half. Cut to Ribbons.
Cut to Ribbons.
Yeah,
it's it's not a good pick.
We might see some bullshit coming soon.
Yeah. Or it's just the thought is in your head that fork it's a very powerful effect, and you'll get something later, or I don't know.
Yeah, there's a plan here, and I'm very interested to see what comes from it.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Okay.
Kyle has SDT and Counterbalance, the classic legacy combo.
Absolutely. Also taking Opt as have both. I know that Ponder's off the board, right? That came off.
Yes.
Okay.
Ponder
So
came off.
Yeah, Ponder and Preordain are both off the board. Brainstorm
Brainstorm's
is
gone.
up. So, in terms of cantrips, I think what I would prefer to see over Opt here, and this is not an expectation that I have or that Kyle should have thought of this. There are cantrips that say like target player draws a card, which is highly relevant when you're playing against Luke and Thoracle combo. So exiles his entire deck, and as the Thoracle trigger is on the stack still, you play that cantrip, and he draws a card but can't draw a card and loses the game. So talking about those really niche ways to interact with Thoracle combo, that's one of them.
Yeah.
And being so kind of minimal value for minimal digging for a cantrip, at a certain point, you kind of want to just switch over into those utility cantrips that do something like weird or off the wall. Thought Scour can be that from time to time.
Yep. Kozilek's command does that. The scry draw is use scry, target player draws.
Yep.
Which is the power of that card in Modern against the Grinding Station combo. And that's available to Josh.
Yeah, Josh will for sure be taking that card. No one else can really reliably cast it to get a surplus amount of value. So let's see, what else do we have here recently? So we're going back-to-back Titans. Cassidy takes Primeval Titan into Pete's Inferno Titan. The cost is just too high on Inferno Titan. I think it's not what you want to.
I mean,
six mana is a lot. You do have Fury, so it's something that you're pitching to it, and then if you're top boarding it, then it's just it's hitting real hard. But I think if you're going to be going in that 5-6 CMC range, I would probably rather have a Zealous Conscripts, or something to that effect. I mean, I think I would also like to just see like a Chandra Torch of Defiance, maybe.
I think that's the better look there, because I don't know how we're getting to 6 mana that fast without both our Moxen and Dark Writ for Inferno Titan to be a meaningful play.
Yeah, I think you want to keep it to 4 or 5.
Yeah,
realistically.
And I understand and appreciate that Pete does have ways to discard it, but there's only one way to reanimate it.
Yeah, that is accurate. I think I kind of like the Torbrand as a animate dead target. I think that's because you don't give a shit if it's a 2/4 or a 1/4.
Or a 0/4 at that point, yeah.
Yeah, who cares? But yeah, just animate dead that card. And I wish that there was a lightning bolt there. But let me see. Does Torbrand, if a red source you control, deal damage to an opponent? So Eidolon of the Great Revel is not hitting you for 4.
Correct. All
right, so that's nice. That's going to be very good for Pete. I think that interpretation is very relevant. And then Grave Titan. So this is just on a Titanic stretch of picks here.
We might get that Proxa.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Is the real Titan that Pete wants is Croxa. I think that is the one that is most in line with the theme and play style of the deck that he's building.
Yeah, Hobbs taking
Kyle,
Bauble Tribal.
yeah, Kyle continuing down, just taking just taking blue-white control stuff. Nothing too surprising. Hobbs, as you said, on Bauble Tribal. Cassidy, the shifting woodland is it's going to win him a lot of games. I'd be interested to see if Cassidy ends up running like Crater Hoof,
Yeah,
because it's kind of the card you get with Finale of Devastation.
yes.
Uh,
I'm curious what
but-
we're going to copy with Shifting Woodlands.
So
In this list as it exists, I just
Right.
don't quite see it yet, but I'm excited to know what Shifting Woodlands is going to do.
I mean, Unnatural Growth is one.
Yeah, it takes less pips to woodland it than actually cast it, for sure.
Yeah. So I'm looking at Siege Behemoth now. I missed that pick when it came along. As long as it is attacking for each creature you control, you may have that creature sign its combat damages, though it weren't blocked.
Yeah, so you just face.
That's one of them, especially because it gives itself hexproof. There are cards here. I don't think. I don't know that any of them are kind of like the decisive, like this 2-card combo ends the game when I copy this.
Yeah,
But
we have the Triumph of the Hordes earlier on. We have Glistener Elf, and I think this Tel'Jalad Fallen might have Infect. So we have like a little bit of that plan. There's just a lot going on here and a lot of avenues to take for Cassidy.
yeah, I think what I would like to see from Cassidy, obviously, is a glimpse of nature. I think Priest of Titania is right in the wheelhouse here. Raffello's, but being able to Finale of Devastation for, with X equals 10 and getting a Glistener Elf, making that easier on yourself while still providing the tribal elf advantages that you're getting is what we should continue to look for from Cassidy. Pete, just pick Croxy here, man.
Yeah, he wanted to take Pyroblast, which is fine. Reb is still on board.
Yeah, absolutely. Like Pyroblast it's a great pick here.
Yeah, well, Mark has it, so he's got to come up with some. Oh, and Pete has Reb. Okay, so we're good.
Okay. Yep. Then we got Hagen with Energy Flux. It's just a card. This is the time to pick up a card like that.
Yeah.
Energy Flux or Hercule's Recall. I think it does less against this pot of drafters than in other kind of artifact builds. Although no, because with Kappa Cannoneer and everything, that's like probably the best way to get around that.
Mm-hmm.
With all those baubles, bouncing everything back to Hobbs's hand is not as much value as you might think with Thought Monitor and stuff, but hitting a Seed of the Synod and all of that, and for Metamorph, that does set him back several turns.
With Synthesizer, Metamorph, Kappa Cannoneer, and some of the baubles, I thought we might actually see Coveted Jewel come out of Hobbs at some point, just as a draw and mana engine. But we're fighting. Was it Josh at the beginning of the draft? That's a Manifold Key. Luke has the One Ring. Hobbs has the Workshop, so we have the ability to actually play that. And yes, Bright Bill Entomb is still on the board. Nobody has Entombed yet, I believe.
Okay, so we've got Troll of Khazad-dûm out of Steven, which is you want that card. You already have Reanimate.
Yep. And you have a Bayou, so
yeah, you've got a soupy mana base. Troll of Khazad-dûm. I knew it. Torment's Crypt. Interesting.
You have Saga, you have Karn.
Yeah.
If you're Mark, right? So you have two ways to get it, depending on where you want to put it.
That's correct. I think Mark from personal recent experience, at 46th pick, I think Mark wants to take Altar of the Brood. Altar of the Brood in the Karn board is just such a disgustingly annoying way to win games when you can't get Mycosynthellatus.
We just slowly mill your opponent out one permanent at a time.
Not even slowly. It. I mean, this is a deck that Mark has with Luris and Black Lotus and Fourth Ear Lingus and
Okay,
even Tamio making clues and
yeah, so 2 to 3, maybe 4.
We'll see if he ends up leaning into Tinker any more than he already has, but not that I'm suggesting he does this or it's something that Mark would do, but Mere Battlesphere dropping 5 tokens on the board.
Yep, that makes Tinker real good. We
5.
have Kozilek's Command from Josh, which we talked about being a play coming up soon. Hagen entering the Bone Zone, I would expect.
Baby. Steven does really like the Emperor of Bones card.
It's a very, very good card, but you only have one target right now to reanimate and no ways to put additional counters on it after you activate it. I can't remember the name of the ability it has. Adapt it after you adapt it. So that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, with the Innkeeper's Talent already picked up by Cassidy.
Mm-hmm. And GJ off the board.
Yeah. GJ, good pick from Pete. It's his mana is the sequencing. I think is going to be an issue with how he plays his spells. I think it.
Yeah.
If this gets online, it's going to be pretty nasty, but it's going to take a while to get all these cards out.
Yeah. And I like this wheel from Cassidy back to Cassidy. These 6 cards are fantastic.
Yeah, Allosaurus Shepherd, Craterhoof Behemoth. That's exactly
perfect.
Yeah.
Hobbs takes Slayer of Denial, one of the last free counter spells available into Emrakul.
Yeah, that is. I mean, it's a card that you want if you're getting milled out. In your deck, it's a card that's nice against Show and Tell.
You have infinite mana too in this list. Remember?
Yeah. So it's just a win con. I would expect to see Shelldock Isle next round.
Oh yeah.
I think I would have preferred to see Emrakul and then Shelldock.
Instead of Flare of Denial?
Instead of Flare of Denial. Especially because look at all these blue creatures that don't really exist in this list. Are you telling me that you want to sacrifice your Hull Breacher to Flare Denial or your Urza? I don't even know what Metamorph is.
I was thinking mainly Thought Monitor and Emery, but again, once Thought Monitor does its thing, it's the perfect.
It is, but your Flare of Denial, you're kind of limiting the utility on it as a free spell if you are waiting until a Thought Monitor has the ability to hit the battlefield. So I don't love the suite of options that are there for a creature that's getting sacrificed.
Yeah, unless there are going to be a lot more blue creatures that come down the pipe. Like we might now with Trinket Mage, Treasure Mage, we have the new Mage that gets you something right in the middle.
Tribute Mage or Transit Mage.
Yeah, that's one. Yeah, so maybe we will see some more fodder.
Okay, we have Goblin Lackey from Pete, kind of pivoting back into that, taking Lava Claw reaches before Badlands. These things happen. But I think instead of Goblin Lackey, I would have preferred a Goblin Legionnaire. I would have preferred Goblin Legionnaire over Monastery Swift Spear in the first kind of 8 to 10 picks. That card is it is a card that I would run even in non-Goblin lists, especially if I'm going, for example, in a hasty Gruul archetype. Like if a deck I'm running like Lelia and Questing Beast, I I love running Goblin Legionnaire.
Yeah.
The battalion ability is very relevant and very strong.
Yeah. Then we have Josh with Eldrazi Mimic, which is just a curve filler in the early game. I don't want to say you have to play it. I ended up sideboarding it out most games. It was there for game one to try and just help push through the win.
It sometimes it is extremely relevant, but you have to have the right sequence of draws.
Yeah. And then Luke with Ruin Crab, so he'll probably take, I'd assume, the other crab on the wheel.
I would imagine so. And so if we go through his list, we do see 3 fetches. So Luke and Steven are the fetch land crew. So that is still or that is an impactful shell in which to run these crabs, the soft shell crab, baby. I like it. I think he's going to run into a lot of trouble with the surgical extraction and extirpate, given that this is a singleton format.
Yep. That's my problem with Lackey.
Yeah. That's.
All right. So Mark's going to be the first pick coming back from break. Mark took Stoneforge Mystic in 21, Cauldron Complete in 32, so we're forming our package.
Yep.
With the way that Mark's draft has kind of shaped up, I almost want to see pre-war formal wear taken.
Okay.
That allows you to, with your broadside bombardiers, sacrifice your Stoneforge or your Luris. I think there's something else up earlier in the draft. Yeah, was a White Plume Reseason Dungeoneer. One of them costs 3 as well. So you can just pre-war formal wear back any number of those creatures for additional value.
Yeah. It looks like Mark has the avenue for so many different value interactions.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very similar to 2 of the lists that I've drafted recently. And so one card that I think is absolutely perfect for Mark is Dress Down. So
the cycle.
Not only does it shut off cards like, Craterhoof Behemoth, the win cons from Cassidy or like the Emrakul triggers, etc. Oh, well, it doesn't shut off the Emrakul trigger. Besides the point. It does a lot of damage just as a shutdown card with flash that cycles itself. But with Luris, the interaction there where you go to your end step, you flash in Dress Down, draw a card, and that beginning of next end step has passed. So Dress Down is active during their turn, and then you sacrifice it at the end of their end step, and then Luris lets you recast it again on your next end step. So you're just drawing a second card every turn and perpetually having your opponent's creature shut off.
Yeah, it does a lot of work against Thoracle.
Very much so.
Right.
You just have a shield up where they have to, where you're drawing an extra card every single turn, and they have to be able to get through the Dress Down. And enchantment removal is not something that people prioritize in this or any meta. But so I think that is the perfect card for Mark. I would also say that he wants to get Lion Sash. Yeah. It's just another card that out of the board is incredibly impactful, especially going to be against Steven, to some degree Pete, with only one kind of reanimation piece. But yeah, just getting stuff, a beater that gets stuff out of the graveyard that you can tutor up with Stoneforge Mystic. Beyond that, I also really like Phantasmal Illusion.
Yeah,
I
Phantasmal
believe
Image to copy an initiative creature.
so. You copy an initiative creature, so you just get a second trigger. A lot of the time, that's with White Plume Adventurer.
Mm-hmm.
That can just be game over if it gets you to the opponent takes a 5 life hit.
The trap, yeah.
But once again, with Luris being able to copy it, Phantasmal Image comes into play. It gets targeted or sacrificed or whatever, and then you just recast it again. So getting those enter the battlefield triggers,
Yeah.
kind of on loop,
And it
especially with mechanics as powerful as the Monarch and Initiative, like
and
that can really put your opponent in a hole.
and broadside, which flings.
Broadside, yes,
Right?
absolutely.
So yeah, so you have your initiative creature, you copy a phantasmal image, you fling the image with broadside for the damage, and then recast the image off of Luris. It is not
Making it into a broadside, sacrificing something
exactly.
else.
It's not a game-winning combo on that turn, but it is a game-winning combo over a very short number of turns.
That yes, and that number of turns is if it is not one, it's two.
Yeah.
That's pretty brutal.
So looking at these decks, is there anyone you're excited to see like finish out from where we are now? Like just watch this deck bloom.
Yeah, my initial reaction is that Cassidy still has a lot of very impactful cards for this archetype that have not been taken. I don't like Wasteland is still available to be picked, and he's got a Ramenop Excavator. I'm scrolling up to see, because he's got the Fast Bond. So yeah, that whole archetype of Fast Bond Crucible interactions, how he finishes that off, whether he gets Glimpse of Nature. But realistically, I want to see how he fills out this sideboard to deal with the field, because drafting a lot of main board cards so far.
And some popular answers like Endurance have already been taken. So that limits the scope with which you have to operate.
Yeah. I'm wondering with Luke if there's going to be any concerted effort to get value out of Isochron Scepter, because as I currently see it, there's really nothing beyond, I guess, Drown in the Lock.
I think, yep.
But
I think that is the most impactful card that Luke has to put underneath that.
Yeah, so, I think if I'm Luke, I just let it go. Yeah. I just put it in the sideboard as a never play.
There is value to putting Brainstorm underneath it, because you can unlock yourself by just casting more Brainstorms, but I don't think that's where you want to be with Isochron Scepter or Brainstorm.
No, it's you're just dedicating too much mana to that plan. I mean, like we said, he's got 3 fetches, so being able to kind of craft the best 2 or 3 cards off of that Brainstorm reliably for a couple of turns while he's milling you out with these crabs, that's pretty nice. But
we could see Tasha's Hideous Laughter from Luke, and that was actually something I was thinking about as well.
Yeah, Tasha's Hideous Laughter would be a great pickup for Luke.
Specifically because of the Mind Skinner, which I don't think we've seen.
Oh, yes, the 10-1 from Duskmourn.
Yes.
Yeah, let's pull this up. And to everybody in chat, I don't have the feed directly in front of me, so I can't see chat, and I can't see what cards are up on the board.
Oh, so. Yeah. Oh, no, I've got it up because I don't know if people have really seen this outside of draft, but the 10-1 for triple blue, it can't be blocked. And the Mind Skinner, if a source you control would deal damage to an opponent, prevent that damage, and each opponent mills that many cards.
Okay, yeah. This card, I would be more excited to see it out of Luke's deck if he hadn't gone down the rabbit hole of taking Ponza pieces for a non-Ponza deck.
Okay.
The route of like Wild Growth, Utopia Sprawl, Arbor Elf, all that stuff that's costing green, just it makes me hesitant to like kind of request that goes in that list. I think that you realistically would prefer to just run something like I think it's Archive Trap or Mindbreak Trap. If they search their library,
Archive.
It's 13 at the top. So I don't know. Like there's also cards just like Fraying Sanity, which I think that mills 14.
Yeah, when you cycle it, it mills a good chunk.
So that card, I think that this is a thing that people don't translate from Constructed or even Commander to the VRD format, which is that as a resource, life total is 20. That stays the same, I guess, unless you're coming from Commander. Besides the point, that's 20. That's static, but the number of cards in your library as a resource for a win condition goes from either 100 or 60 down to 40. And if you play Fraying Sanity, which is a absolute bulk rare, blue, your opponent mills 14 cards. That sounds like hot garbage until you realize that after your opponent has drawn their opening hand, 14 cards milled plus their opening hand is more than 50% of their library.
Yep.
And so that immediately turns on Shelldock Isle. It is extremely relevant, especially if you follow it up with something like Tasha's Hideous Laughter.
Yep.
Because
good.
Yeah, it just ends their library.
There's a world where if Cassidy and Kyle build their decks in a specific way, Fraying Sanity into Tasha's Hideous Laughter is the game.
Yes. Game over.
There's Archive Trap from Luke, so we are pivoting to a mill plan now.
And Mark going Underworld Breach into Brain Freeze, I would be absolutely shocked if his next pick was not LED. And I also expect from Mark that we will be seeing his deck with 12 lands.
Okay. So few.
Yeah. So Luke going Crab, Trap. Also, by the way, these cards' value are bolstered extremely with Ashiok Dreamrender. Because it makes this Emrakul, the Aeon's Torn that Hobbs has, and this Kozilek that Josh has, much less reliable as a way to get out of a mill recursion thing.
We had a question asked in chat. Do players ever board in extra cards against mill?
Yes and no. So mill, it pops up from time to time. I am very proud to be the introducer of crabs into the VRD meta that we know, at least at St. Lotus. And I had somebody board in Relentless Rats Thrumming Stone against me for, they just made a 60-something card deck that was all Relentless Rats, Swamps, and a Thrumming Stone. But it is made... doing that is less impactful when you have, I guess, exile effects or things that make the mill infinite. Like doing a Brain Freeze combo, it doesn't really help if you've got 40 cards or 60 cards. So it has happened a few times, but the nature of the mill deck, whether it's exile, whether it's combo, whether it's just every card is like a crab where it's hitting you for a little every turn. You've got, Altar of the Brood. That is the structure of the mill deck that is most disadvantaged by going up against a 60 card deck.
Yeah.
So we could see that against Luke. I wouldn't be surprised. Like Goblin Lackey has already been taken.
Yep.
4
He's trying to
5
figure
picks
out
ago.
what cards he hasn't taken.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. Pete is now falling into the trap of at his 37th pick, he's still drafting main board cards. So
yeah.
I think Pete cutting his list down is going to be tricky, but it gives him that exact thing we were talking about against Luke, which is just going to be able to play a 60 card deck.
Yep.
This Josh is finishing off his Eldrazi list with exactly the cards we would kind of expect. Nature's Claim out of the sideboard for stuff like Hobbs's Time Vault, and then getting Elder Deep Fiend, Yavimaya Coast. I think Drowner of Truth. I'm not sure if it's Drowner of Truth or Bringer of Truth, the uncommon from MH3. That is an MDFC that taps for blue and green. That's a perfect card to run with both Ugin's Labyrinth. Is that the card I'm thinking of? I believe so. And just getting value out of what is this? He has Echo of Eternities, I believe, or no, Devour of Destiny. Those are the cards that you want to be run with.
Yeah, and
want to be Ugin's Labyrinth and also fixing your mana.
Yep, and I would expect Wastegate Battle Mage as well, because both of the kicker costs on it are relevant always.
Yeah. Glimpse the Unthinkable. I love the concept. I love the nostalgia of it. I think that it is also just a bit redundant. Fairy Macabre. Okay, yeah, that's just a really solid sideboard.
Yeah.
Card for Josh. It's not even one that I'm familiar with. So good on Josh. I think that Josh's list it's very solid, if not, possibly at times a little bit clunky, but like so many of these things are threats. He's going to be vulnerable to combo. But like if he stays ahead of it, I mean, like he's got recall. He's got Tomb, Mana Vault, Grim Monolith, Gaia's Cradle, like all of these soul lands. He's going to be okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm excited to see how his list plays out. Hagen going with Ren 6.
Pashalik Mons, Modern All-Star.
Pashalik Mons.
So I've got this up now. It's 2 and a red for a 2/2 legendary Goblin Warrior. Whenever Pashalik Mons or another goblin you control dies, Pashalik Mons deals 1 damage to any target. And as an activate ability, 3 and a red, sacrifice a goblin, create 2 1/1 red goblin creature tokens. Now, you won't actually be paying that cost. You'll be playing Sling Gang Lieutenant.
Okay, yep.
Which is the better Siege Gang commander. And this costs 3 and a black for a 1/1. When Sling Gang Lieutenant enters the battlefield, create 2 1/1 red goblin creature tokens. Then its activated ability is sacrifice a goblin. Target player loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So they basically work in concert.
Right. Yeah. That's pretty nasty. I think so. That card we absolutely need to see out of Pete. And then the other one is Skirk Prospector. Like,
yes,
you can't have a goblin combo list without Skirk Prospector.
Correct. Just another free sacrifice outlet. Yeah.
Yeah.
Rogue's Passage. What are we shoving?
I'm not super excited about the 2 land picks that Cassidy has made recently, the Oran Reef and Rogue's Passage. I mean, not to say that they're not good utility lands in this color, but I think I would just prefer to see Rafellos or Priest of Titania.
Yeah.
Like those are cards that have to be answered, and you can't just replace them by playing a forest instead without losing it. You're not losing very much value by just doing that instead.
There is an amount of Cassidy's draft that looked like it came from knowledge of like a non-powered cube.
Yeah.
because you're seeing a lot of these really neat and interesting avenues to take for an elf-based deck, combo or aggro otherwise. And it
Yep.
looks like that just might have been shifted knowledge. And we've talked about this, I feel like, at every VRD,
Correct.
which that can work, but there's more legwork you have to do on top of that to make sure that your picks are as powerful as possible for this
Correct.
kind of draft. You can use that as your foundation, absolutely, but there's more homework that you've got to do.
Yes, that's absolutely true. You know, coming from like doing like a lot of Pioneer Masters drafts or like you know, Modern Cube or Vintage Cube, you're going to see these interactions that are extremely powerful in those formats, but they are made less impactful. Like especially 3-card combos are very potent in those particular formats. Not as much in VRD where you're going up against 2-card combos that are just much more efficient, and you can, you know, use redundancy to kind of make make those even more efficient. Mark going with the Kozilek Butcher of Truth, I think that's just mill protection.
100%.
But as we've I guess maybe against show and tell, but I think with show and tell, you'd rather have Palace Jailer,
Yeah. So
especially because you know it's another thing that gives you the Monarch, and it's a creature you can play on turn one with Black Lotus,
So
etc.
that pick came after Galta, Stampede, Tyrant, and Mesmeric Orb. And so to your point, I think it's more mill protection than it is show and tell protection, because if Steven show and tells in Galta, one Kozilek is not going to stand up against whatever else comes out of that hand.
Yeah. I will say at this point, I've held myself off from saying this until now. I am my heart hurts a little bit that we have as many players in green as we do, and Hex Drinker is still on the board. Instantly makes 4 of these decks much better.
Yeah.
It's actually a perfect. I mean, Steven wants it, whether or not he realizes it. But Josh really wants a Hex Drinker because it is a turn 1 threat that allows him to sink all this mana into if he just can't hit the threshold to, let's say, play a 7-drop. You know, that's one of the risks of these Eldrazi lists, is that if you just, you know, you keep a hand, you're like, okay, I can't play the 7-drop now, but all I have to do is draw into a, you know, a Mana Vault or a Grim Monolith, whatever.
Yep.
And then I can start playing it. But if you instead draw into all these 7-drops, what are you doing with that excess mana that you do have? And Hex Drinker is the perfect answer for that. And the amount of times where like Hex Drinker just didn't get answered by the time it became a 4/4 with protection from instants, and then it's free game to get it to 8 to have protection from everything, and you don't play any other cards other than Hex Drinker and mana sources, and you're done.
Yep. No, I agree. I think that could have been a spot Cassidy could have been in early in the draft as well. Cassidy could have taken a Hex Drinker and done really well. Now Cassidy's on the mono Craterhoof train with Enray's Forerunners, which is from Guilds of New Rav, then taking Pathbreaker, Ibex, which I believe came from a commander set. Like, the last one to take would be a Big Pig, Decimator of Provinces, to finish out the tribe.
Yeah. I mean, I like Josh wants that, but Enray's Forerunners, to me, that is just it's over mainboarding. Rather than getting another Craterhoof Behemoth effect, just put in another Finale of Devastation effect, another Green Sun Zenith effect. I like for those purposes, I love Fiend Artisan. I think that you don't need 2 of those Craterhoof style things when you can use the utility search spell, the Court of Calling type card,
and
to get the same thing out.
Natural Order is still on board.
Yeah.
Nobody's taking it. So yeah, it's all in your wheelhouse.
Yeah, I was wondering if Haywire Might was going to be in Josh's plan, and I'm just now seeing. I don't know why I thought that Haywire Might was too colorless.
Nope.
That card is insane, and it's
is.
absolutely a card that Josh wants. It was a card that Josh wanted when I thought it cost 2, but yeah, there we go.
You're gonna have to play somebody that has Ensnaring Bridge in their list.
Yes.
So you need a way to get out from underneath the bridge.
Mm-hmm.
And that'll do it.
And to his credit, I guess maybe it's a degree of perspicacity or not. The instead of taking Emrakul the Aeon's Torn, taking Ulamog the Infinite Gyre, it destroying a permanent, very relevant.
Yeah.
So like the drawing 4 cards, if you've got Annihilator, how relevant is that truly? With everything else that you have going on in the list. So, it does, I think, in my opinion, come down to either Emrakul or Ulamog. And so if you're worried about specific hate pieces, specific permanents that are really fouling up your day, even this Maze of Ith, that could be actually, no, because the Annihilator trigger happens no matter what.
Correct.
But point stands is that there are prison pieces that are going to be out there, or combo pieces that are threatening to kill you in response. Like, Pete is in a situation where if he has the Torbran out and like a Perforos, like if he untaps, then he just wins. So blowing up
Impact Tremors.
Yeah.
So he's going big on that.
Yeah, those are cards that you want to target. And especially if Josh doesn't feel like he has the ability to have that creature attacking this turn, which, none of his stuff has haste really, except for Reality Smasher. Then outside of drafting Lightning Greaves, what do you need something to happen this turn.
There's a Hall of the Bandit Lord in Josh's list, but
correct.
I don't think it's gonna be that impactful. One single source of haste, like you're saying, is just.
I think if you're gonna have a list for Hall of the Bandit Lords, it's absolutely this one. I think that card is it's very, very good in an Eldrazi list because it just gives you the option to take wins when they otherwise don't exist. Especially like with Sire of the Seven Deaths.
Yeah,
that is giving that bad boy haste. I'm thinking of the right card, right? That doesn't have haste in its keyword soup, I think.
That's a good question.
I don't think it does. Oh my god, I'm scrolling. Sire of Seven Deaths. No, it does not. But it has
everything else.
First Strike, Vigilance, Minutes, Trample, Reach, Lifelink, Ward, pay 7 life.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is the perfect card for. So I guess who are we on now? As I'm continuing
Everybody
to scroll.
has their picks. They're just pasting them in. So we are definitely at the end of this draft. Mark picked up Mycos and Flatus. He has the Karn. It makes sense. If you can wall up and then cast it, you're good. Luke with Court of Cunning, the Mill Court. So now we have a path forward. Josh with Channel, which, as you and I discussed in person, is a very good card for the Eldrazi list overall.
Maybe the best card.
Yeah. Takanuma from Hagen. So another Raise Dead brings it back to hand. Pete with Fireball because we got a bunch of mana, so why not? Blazing Sunsteel at a Cassidy, which I've brought up for everybody to take a look at. Colors and a red. Equipped creature gets +1/+0 for each opponent you have. Whenever equipped creature is dealt damage, it deals that much damage to any target.
I'm very confused.
I am as well. I don't know what we're
have a red source
poking with. There's that too.
Maybe he typed it in and doesn't, and it was it's supposed to be like blazing something else.
I don't know. Metallic
I don't know.
Rebuke from Hobbs, fantastic counterspell. Temporal Mastery out of Kyle, the Delve Time Walk into Entreat, so we're setting up a small Miracle Shell now.
I like Kyle's package. It is not flashy at all.
Nope.
Except for the cards that have flash, but it's tidy and it does what it's supposed to do, which is prevent your opponent from playing anything
Yep.
at all. And yeah, I think Kyle is going to potentially be, you know, a surprising kind of like in the 5-2 range with this list if he plays disciplined like the list kind of demands him to.
Yep.
I think right here, Primordial Hydra is just a bit of a miss. Once again, a case of over mainboarding. And I'm looking at Steven and I'm still saying, like, why have you not taken Atraxa yet? Or, I mean, obviously, or Hex Drinker.
With Flash into Woodfall Primus, I really thought that was going to be Flash into Atraxa, and maybe Steven's just sandbagging it. I don't know.
It's a dangerous game to play. When that, like, you know, do you need this Shieldred?
I do not know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Then we have Propaganda.
Great sideboard card.
Yeah. And now we're just hanging out on Mark.
Yeah, I mean, Propaganda is it's a perfect, you know, delay tactic kind of wall to put up for Luke. It's quite good. Containment Priest.
You have two decks that can reanimate, so yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. What would we like to see out of Mark?
What is Perilous Snare?
That's another Ether Drift card. It's like a Banishing Light that starts your engines, and then you can put +1/+1 counters on creatures. I don't. I mean, it's fine. You know, we talked about the Ancient Tomb max speed land, just as like a way to have all this stuff on the board. So Perilous Snare has now gotten us to 3. We have the Initiative. We've got the Monarch.
Okay.
We have max speed, and so to fit in with the rest of the context of Mark's list, to get Tempted by the Ring, the best card available is absolutely Samwise the Stout-Hearted.
That is a fantastic card. I do want to know.
It's going to bring back Black Lotus, and you can use Caracas to bounce it back to your hand, play your Lotus, crack it, play Samwise, bring the Lotus back to your hand.
Perilous Snare is an artifact. Mark has Karn.
That now that makes the most sense.
So it's a 42nd card because we have Lurrus. 40.
It's a Karn boardable banished.
Mark has 2 companions, but can only play 1.
Okay, so we are coming up here. We have at least 3 picks remaining from everybody.
Yep. There's a hyphen in that name. That's what they're missing.
Pete, continuing with drafting the Goblin Suite.
Circa 2002.
Yep. I mean, Siege King Commander is, if you're running a Goblin list, that is still a card that you want in the list. Unfortunately, I think it just negates most of the picks that he's previously made, and he still hasn't found anything to be able to fork.
Nope, that was just a throw him off the scent kind of pick. So we did have a question from chat that I've answered briefly. The question is, do you think we're going to get a run on random shocks in various lands? I haven't seen any Triumphs go.
We should. I wonder what Cassidy's going to do if he realizes that the Blazing Sunsteel was the wrong card, or if we see a Stomping Grounds or something. But
this is a 40k card, I think. Canopy Tactician.
Canopy Tactician. It's just an Elvish Lord.
Have we not seen this? Oh, there it is. Okay.
Yeah, it's a Kaldheim.
Oh, yep. Okay.
Okay, so yeah, Jace the Perfected Mind, another mill you out very easily card. For 4 mana, donk you for 15.
Waystgate Battle Mage, which is what I said Josh needed to pick up, but again, he could have floated it as far down as 46. Nobody's taken it.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, if you're floating picks, there's a good chance you're floating 3-4 of them.
Pete with Skull Clamp is perfectly fine.
Yeah,
but we need to see Sling Gang and Skirk Prospector in these last 2 picks to really make Skull Clamp hum in this list.
Yeah, I think Steven needs to find one more mana source or one more fetchable.
The Sultai Triome is still available.
Right. Also worth noting is that we have not seen a from Mark. We have who's Tividar's Crusade.
Destroy all goblins.
Destroys all goblins.
That's what I thought it was.
Yep. Nasty card against Pete to just put the screws in.
Yep. Could have taken Shill, like a civil human being instead.
Yeah. So notably, we still don't have... Okay, so there's Steven taking one more fetchable, and I like... If I'm Steven, my last pick is Wasteland. You have Ren and 6.
Mm-hmm.
It just make it happen here. Like get value out of that card as a soft lock piece.
Yep. We are
makes people
right now with everything on board. As chat keeps asking, Entomb is still live. Lion's Eye Diamond is still live. Wasteland is still live.
I think that Mark still wants Lion's Eye, but as we talked about when he was in pick 15 and hadn't taken a land other than Urza Saga, he's going to be so heavily main boarded that number one, he's going to have to run like 12 lands, but number two, he's going to miss out on kind of completing not Kaldra, but a series of of packages of sweets that he won't be able to get the full value out of. Yeah. So for example, Lion Sash, he won't be able to do that or do anything else with the Stoneforge Mystic. Because if you have Kaldra in hand and you don't have any ways to really discard stuff, or get stuff in your hand back into your library, then Stoneforge Mystic is just a dead draw.
Yeah.
So having redundant pieces or equipment is very helpful, very impactful.
Yep.
But we've got Shark Typhoon and a Phyrexian Dreadnought. The Phyrexian Dreadnought seems to be a meme pick, unless
we have
is there a
Stifle and Dress Down.
Okay, all right. Then
we're not all the way in on the plan.
Yeah, but it's there.
Hobbs' last pick.
Yes. Thank you, Hobbs. All right, so I love that finally happened. That 47th pick, Unstoppable Plan. Eladamri Corvicdal. I don't want to hate on Cassidy because he's got a potent elves list, but just unfortunately, to my mind, over main boarded, especially towards the end here. Steven going with Leovold. Not a terrible pick, but I still think that the proactive value of Wasteland is better there. Pete with the Skull Clamp, definitely good, but he needed that Skirk Prospector.
Yeah, there's no free sack outlet in this list at all.
Yeah, I think that's really gonna come back to hurt him.
Yeah.
Mind Spinner coming off the board. I think once again over main boarding, over in on the plan too hard rather than protecting. Get away. I guess he does have the extirpate and the surgical extraction, but that doesn't. So that thing has to be in the graveyard, and so at that point, it's not.
Yeah, I would have liked to have seen more creatures that were unblockable from Luke to really take advantage of the Mind Skinner. We have the Voidwalker, which gets through, and the Mind Skinner itself. But another creature or two, either with shadow or some form of evasion. There's a looter Ilkor that has shadow,
Yep.
right? So you could have had a looter but a lot of that smacks of a plan that pivoted. Sorry, a
Yeah.
lot of what we see smacks of a plan that pivoted, which is
Yeah.
fine.
So Mark finishes out our draft with the Shauna's Tidebinder, an incredible card that is one of the great ways to shut down Thoracle combo, I think. Don't quote me on that. Okay, good. But yeah, seemingly unable to kind of complete some of the value packages. Like he never got Lion's Eye Diamond. Notable cards missing from this draft being Lion's Eye Diamond, Hex Drinker, Wasteland, sideboard pieces like Hercule's Recall, Steel Sabotage are missing.
We have a
But
Tinker, but no Blightsteel, no Portal to Phyrexia.
I think that if Mark does end up running the Tinker, which it seems unlikely that he will, knowing Mark, like he has a total of like 3 or 4 artifacts. I think that the Tinker realistically only exists as a way to get Cauldra, but I don't think that that's the plan really.
So either.
I think Mark just ends up cutting Tinker, which is it's a problem that stems from a glut of resources. Luke pivoted to being all in on the mill plan towards the end, unless that's just like something that's coming out of the sideboard as a backup to the wheels. But to me, they are complementary pieces.
Yes.
Not having fast bond is certainly far from ideal, but we'll see how that ends up playing out.
Yep.
Josh's Eldrazi list, I think, came together very nicely. A few, a slight lack. Oh no. Okay, no, sorry. There it is in 31. He did get Kozilek's Command. But other than that, not a whole lot of interaction. Steven, I think the deck is still very solid. Like he's going to pick up a good number of wins. I think it seems very solidly 4 and 3 to me with upside. But I think just there were things that I saw losing value on the Mana Crypt. Not getting Hex Drinker.
No Atraxa for Flash.
Yeah. Oh my god, I did not even. Okay,
no
so I did not. Yeah, no Atraxa, no Atali. I did not realize until right now that Steven already had Strip Mine. So that means the Wasteland, although it's still a good piece, in a 4-color deck, I think just having the better option is good. So okay, I retract a little bit about what I said with Strip Mine, but him already having Green Sun Zenith, that's just telling you that Hex Drinker should be coming up next. Pete, we've kind of been over this, over mainboarded and, took a Boseiju that doesn't do a whole lot, can still put together a very frightening board.
Yes.
With Torbran and that, but it's just missing, I think, a lot of the ancillary pieces, like Skirk Prospector, et cetera, to really make the combo super resilient, to just doink you for a lot. We got Cassidy here on Elves, kind of falling into that same category with Pete, just over mainboarding once again. I think there's a lot of opportunities to get good green sideboard cards. He did take Beast Within, which is one of the few removal spells that you can get in a pure green list. But if that will be enough is something that we will see as the drafters start to play. Hobbs, a affinity artifact list with, infinite turn potential. We've got the Hull Breacher, which against the field is still going to do work, but never really saw a wheel, as far as I can tell as I'm scrolling down.
Nope.
Yeah, never really saw a wheel out of that. And so I think, Lion's Eye plus Echo of Eons is something that Hobbs, in retrospect, probably wanted to include. And then, Kyle just never once throughout this draft had a flashy pick, and despite that, at you know, every pick was just contributing to the blue-white control plan.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's going to be good. I think this is one of the better decks. Now, see, we have 2 Kyle Richters in the St. Louis area, so I'm not certain which one this is, but it's good. I think it's a very disciplined draft for Kyle. So, yeah.
We talked about stock up earlier in the stream, and looking at the decks presented to us, if there was one deck that I could say immediately should play stock up, it would be Kyle's. Kyle has both Treasure Cruise and Dig Through Time. Those are going to be very difficult to cast back to back. You could give up on Dig Through Time for stock up, and I think you would gain probably more from stock up than you would Dig Through Time when you keep Treasure Cruise in the list. I think.
Yeah, I'm not as high on stock up, I think, as some others. I certainly see your perspective. I don't love that it's not instant speed.
Yep.
We said that he did that. We did see that he has Treasure Cruise, correct?
Yes, he picked Treasure Cruise, Cryptic Command, Dig Through Time back to back to back. So
okay, I think that it would be fair to include it over Treasure Cruise, and is probably a other. But at the same time, my personal approach would probably just be to take a card like Compulsive Research. I value instant speed, especially when it comes to like card draw and stuff like that, and in a list that I believe Kyle is the one with Teferi, or no?
No.
Okay.
It's not.
Yeah, I think
Mark has Tef.
Yeah, I would say that not getting Teferi was probably a fairly big miss from Kyle, being so firmly in the blue-white list. Mm-hmm. I also think that Archon of Emeria would have been such a nasty shutdown.
Okay.
Like, this is being nitpicky, and like this is not a criticism to the draft that Kyle had in any real capacity, because he's got his counterbalance plan mm-hmm. With all of his miracles. And he's got good turn 1, turn 2, turn 3. Like his sequencing is very good.
Yes.
So I think Kyle is certainly someone to look out for. I think there's a lot of potential 4/3s in this squad.
Okay, I think so too. And when you have an event like that, I think it kind of smacks of exactly what we saw here, which is every deck has multiple plans, but none of them were completed. They got most of the way there, but there was a lot of opportunity and a lot of power left on the table for every single one of these plans inside each one of these decks.
Absolutely. I mean, it was it's certainly apparent in Mark's list, but despite that, I don't even know if this is going out on a limb, but I will easily say that Mark is number 1 in the pre-draft rankings, in my opinion, in the power rankings of potential.
I would agree with that. I like a lot of what Hagen did. I'm just kind of afraid that he might actually have to take that pivot into the 4th color, into red. And that might dilute a little bit of what he's trying to do. It looked like he improved on the deck from the last few times that he's played it. Overall, he got a lot of the picks that he wanted to. Yeah.
The rest of the draft, and this is what happens when you take like we mentioned at the very beginning, you take a group of players that is, let's say half meta drafters, mm-hmm. and then half kind of like newcomers, rookies to this format. It's one of those traps you can fall into, which is what happens when everything you want falls to you. All of the cards that are just bomb after bomb after bomb wind their way up into your hand, and you can just forget. Yeah. There's such a glut of riches that the sensible pick is not taking the busted thing. You know, keeping in mind that you still really only want to play 41 cards. It's tough to deal with. So I think it's going to be an interesting. What do we call the series of matches that everybody plays? It's going to be an interesting pod, I guess.
Yeah.
But
round robin, 7 rounds.
Yeah, everybody has a chance against each other. I think Pete's greatest enemy is going to be his choice of what to mulligan and what not to.
Yeah.
I'm just a little concerned about the sequencing of his plays. You know, there's a lot of 3 drops and 4 drops
without any soul lands or like he has
right.
the 2 moxes, which is fantastic, but you usually want to take a soul land in that deck.
Yeah. So we shall see.
Yep.
Any synthesis from you? What's your biggest takeaway or thing to look forward to going into this?
So the biggest thing I'm looking forward to in this is to see how the blue decks on the edges shake out, because for as long as I've been following St. Lotus, I don't think I've seen 2 base blue decks at 1 and 8. And usually they're 1 and 2 or maybe 1 and 3. So I'm very curious to see how that shakes out at the end of this.
Yeah, it's interesting with Time Walk and Recall going 2nd and 3rd, and then seeing, you know, the primarily blue spells lists being not in those 2. The archetypes that are presented here are not distributed in the traditional sense that we've seen them before. So it will certainly be interesting.
Yeah.
Cool.
Anything for you before we cut out?
No, I just want to say good luck to all the drafters that have participated here. All of the opinions expressed belong solely to Reptar and myself. I had a lot of fun. Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, this was a blast.
Reptar, I hope you're doing well, and enjoy Magic, everybody.
Thank you very much, Brandon. See you next time.
Peace.